Hello, Bible readers. Understanding the form of poetry really can help to unlock the meaning of what the psalmist is trying to get at. Psalm 21, it's another royal psalm, like Psalm 18 and 20, and it's shaped a lot like Psalm 20 was, where the first section is doing one thing that is quite different from a second section, leaving a reader or prayer of this psalm to chew on much more than just woohoo, God is on our side. There's more to this psalm. Psalm 21 starts and ends with references to the strength of God, not the strength of the king, but actually in verse 1, the psalmist says, "In your strength, the king rejoices, O Lord." So the psalmist immediately wants to make it clear who's top dog here. The psalm ends, "Be exalted, O Lord, in your strength. We will sing and praise your power." So the strength of God is what bookends the psalm. That's the theme of this psalm, but it is a strength known to the community through deeds of the king. You gave him his heart's desire, the psalmist says. You set a crown of fine gold on his head. He asked you for life. You gave it to him. My Brueggemann Bellinger commentary says, the king is clearly the recipient, not the agent of all things good. So royal achievements are actually not royal achievements, but are God-given gifts. Verse 7 is the key to the whole psalm. It gives a job description both for a king and a pretty good job description of what God's role is too. It says, "For the king trusts in the Lord, and through the steadfast love of the Most High, he shall not be moved." So king, trust God. God offers steadfast love. This is covenant keeping in a nutshell, you could say. In previous posts, I have mentioned that some scholars that they read Psalm 13 and Psalm 20 and wonder in each of them whether, as this psalm was likely used in a worship setting at the temple where the gathered community would speak together, verses 1 to 7, maybe before the second part, maybe there was a divine oracle of assurance in between the first and the second part of each of these psalms. Because the congregation here in Psalm 21 changes who their you refers to from the first part to the second part. You in the first part is talking to God. In verses 8 to 12, you is king. Your hand will find out all your enemies, the psalmist says in the second part. The Lord will swallow them up in his wrath. You will destroy their offspring from the earth. So by doing this, by using the first part of Psalm 21 to feature God as the you that the congregation is speaking to, and the second part to celebrate the king, it's like the psalmist is able to meld together God and king through the language and the form of this psalm. That their will, their desires, their strength becomes so unified. The psalmist is making the point that if you are the enemy of this king, you are the enemy of our God. At least that's how one could read it, right? But just like Psalm 20 didn't only have one thing to glean from it, didn't just have one meaning, one interpretation, or one agenda, neither does Psalm 21. Because you could also read this psalm as a political reminder to the king and all the king's supporters that yes, the king who trusts in God receives and acts from God's steadfast love, for sure. But just don't forget, the king accomplishes nothing on the king's own. The king is not the greatest power in the kingdom. The Lord is our God, the Lord alone. It's a psalm that would have worked well in the reign of King Josiah or Hezekiah, as 2 Kings tells stories about their faithfulness, unusual faithfulness, unfortunately. And When you read 2 Kings and other stories of the reigns of the kings of Israel and Judah, it made me imagine, since Josiah and Hezekiah were such kind of outliers as kings, like good and faithful kings, I would imagine this psalm was spoken other times for kings less faithful, less trusting, who would be rolling their eyes at the parts that emphasize that God's gifts were the source of their power, their kingly might. My next couple posts are going to be very familiar psalms to Christians. The psalm Jesus quotes from the cross, and then the 23rd psalm. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.